Quick photo and then move on to the pavement push, please.
Okay.
Yep. Go on, mate. Go on to the pavement push.
If you think about it, that guy there on the bicycle and the police officer on horseback, when they transport and give secure transit, I guess, to the Royal Guards, what they are of course doing is a form of real-world physical encryption. They're making sure that nothing gets intercepted along the way. The Home Office, oh my god, I just fell over. I'm at the Home Office. You may have seen in the news yesterday that Amber Rudd, the Home Secretary in this homely building called the Home Office, announced something fairly controversial, which is that in Britain they want to form a movement to ban encryption, which is interesting, isn't it? Or rather, what she said was that she wanted to ban encryption for real people, whatever the hell real people means. I guess by real people she means free-range prison tax animals or something. Because let's face it, well, I think we have to start from basics here, so we'll start from the very beginning. Just across from the Home Office is the Department of Transport. And you can tell a lot about this building just by looking at the address, because what it's really telling you is that the Department of Transport is connected into the military, sort of an echo of military fraternal club, let's call it that. And the Home Office is, of course, the domestic department, or rather the Ministry of the Interior. And of course up the road here is MI5, which is also the Ministry of the Interior. And it's important, of course, because these things are being done, like Amber Rudd says she wants to ban encryption, essentially because of national security. And it's sort of her job to make declarations like that. But I don't think all is quite as it seems on the Rudd camp. Who are these people? Who are they? We're not allowed to know, because physical encryption exists for the elite. It's funny, I was talking on Monday about how there is no cyber sovereignty in the UK, and then what happens the very next day? Amber Rudd basically announces that there's going to be a type of cyber sovereignty in the UK. My first brain activity about it was, oh, interesting. It's got to be something to do with surveillance. They want to stop encryption because of surveillance, but obviously not surveillance of terrorists, because a lot of terrorists are, handled anyway, and they give them devices that are already bugged or whatever. So it's not to do with terrorism, and we kind of know that. And actually, most of the internet already realise that it's not actually about terrorism, but more about surveillance on the normal general public. But actually, I've been doing some Sherlock Holmesing, and I believe that I've stumbled across the real answer as to why it's actually happening. Amber Rudd, being the Home Secretary, basically is the replacement for Theresa May when she was the Home Secretary in the Home Office. And because Theresa May became Prime Minister, essentially she got to assign her replacement. So from the very beginning, the relationship between the new Prime Minister and the new Home Secretary was a system of subservience, as in Amber Rudd is basically owned by Theresa May, or at least can be bullied by Theresa May, and Theresa May can tell her exactly what to do because she gave her her very opportunity. And let's not forget that, according to Wikipedia, Amber Rudd is the fastest rising politician, fastest rising politician since the Second World War, so she's doing particularly well. There is a whole meme on the internet, however, which is the Boris-shaped meme, which is that Amber Rudd is dumb and incapable, and she doesn't know what she's doing, and she's just reading out a script. Now, the last part of that I actually agree with. She's definitely reading out a script. She's required to do so. She's basically a prisoner in her own office, being forced to be the mouthpiece for what is analogous to a terrorist organisation, basically, the British government. But she's certainly not dumb. In actual fact, you only need to just scratch beneath the surface of the very curious Rudd family to find out that they are deeply connected into things like the City of London. In terms of like Amber Rudd being controllable, actually like her actual life situation at the moment puts her in a position of like serious, I mean, she should be in like massive clinical depression in a lot of ways, because quite recently her father has died, and also quite recently she got divorced from a husband who'd been cheating on her with some like model or something. So God, she's really been trodden on in the last few months in terms of like emotional baggage. And if anything, she's sort of a dangerous woman to have making important decisions at the moment, because she, by all accounts, if she were actually a sympathetic human, she would be in a state of not a very not a stable state. She's not strong and stable, I do not believe. But what's really interesting is that her father passed away, and the thing that really tells you that she's not a dumb chick is that Amber Rudd, as she took over her father's business, her father was quite a groundbreaking, cutting-edge stockbroker back in the 70s and the 80s and stuff like that. And he started to lose his sight, and actually Amber Rudd, as a 24-year-old woman, took over her father's business and started to run her father's trading stock market business. Her father had been being investigated by various authorities for insider trading and dodgy deals and not proper bookkeeping and all of that stuff. And so in a way, I mean, I don't know if you know much about like Black Sabbath or anything, but like Ozzy Osbourne got married to Sharon Arden, and Sharon Arden was the daughter of essentially the big crime boss music maestro in Soho called Don Arden, the godfather of Carnaby Street. So when you look at Sharon Osbourne and you think, wow, she seems to be actually quite good at business, well, it's sort of genetic. Her father was some kind of big mafioso boss. It's exactly the same with Amber Rudd. Her father was a pretty serious man in terms of business dealings in the City of London. Which brings us back to encryption, because of course what they're trying to do with banning encryption is to make sure it's nothing to do, I do not believe anyway, with like purchases, as in like authentication for like credit cards or anything like that. All of that encryption is perfectly fine. The kind of encryption she wants to ban is the sort of stuff that encrypts text messages and that sort of thing. So nobody can actually sort of communicate end-to-end using a piece of software without it being hackable, really easily hackable by whoever might want it. And I'm not just the ban on encryption. If you ask me, and like, I don't know if I structured this video properly, but like Amber Rudd was the private secretary of George Osborne when he was Chancellor. I mean, no doubt she got that position because she is particularly adept at insider trading and financial and economic things. She was, in a lot of ways, you could probably even say that Amber Rudd was a lot of the like intelligentsia that was surrounding all the UK's economic stuff during George Osborne's time. In terms of like what encryption could really be used for, that is really bad, and why we definitely, there's a reason that encryption exists in the first place, because people do need to actually send secure encrypted messages, especially if they are sharing financial data, as in, what is my corporation doing? What is this particular company doing? Oh, I've heard, oh, hello mate, how's it going? I've heard the other day, by the way, that your parent company is investing in whatever. That is the sort of thing that will be, or those are the sort of communications that are, basically that kind of information can be used for insider trading and basically just like screwing over the stock market on your own behalf because you have knowledge that is actually illegal for you to have. The ban on encryption will basically just make all of those little conversations that all of the bank dealers and all of the different corporations, as they text their family or they text their friends, or they're showing off to their buddies about how much money they made on a particular deal or whatever, that is very, very, very valuable financial information. So, I think personally that the whole idea that, encryption, they're trying to ban encryption because they want to find terrorists, or they want to ban encryption because they just want to spy on everybody very easily. I think both of those are a type of mental steer, and the actual incentive for the banning of encryption is so that the financial world can be dominated by a few, because anyone who has the capability is going to be encrypting their own systems and everything. The government certainly will be encrypted. It's only the lower folk, the slaves, the prison animals, that will not be allowed to be encrypted, because they're seen as a lower, they're not trustworthy, they're not moral, they're seen as a lower form of life. I personally think, though, especially if you look at Amber Rudd's brother, who's chairman of the big PR company, who works for Royal Dutch Shell and Starbucks and all the ones that have all the occultic icons as their branding image. I just think something more is going on here than what we are being told and what the reaction from the people on the internet are telling us. I don't think either of those are necessarily accurate. I think the motive is money. And did I mention that Amber Rudd's dad, the big mafioso guy, he wasn't really that big, but he was a mafioso guy. First job he had after the Second World War, after he left the military, he worked for the Bank of England. And I think in terms of insider financial dealings benefiting an elite club, that's what Amber Rudd is doing.